Hello everybody, great and glorious, soon to be famous one day, Nick Dutch, and really rather tired because I've had a long day and I spent it all on my feet hanging out with some friends and it's been great and I'm tired. So I'm going to sleep in the bed like a simdaver tonight. For those of you who've watched the old series of Mythbusters back in the day, you'll know what a simdaver is, but I'll be dead to the world. Oh. Anyway, let's have a quick chat about traditions. Because traditions are things which people within the occult, the magical fraternity sort of thing, like to talk about, and they like to say things such as, you have to stick to the tradition. Why? Literally, why? If the way in which you perceive yourself is as being a magician or a witch, then essentially you would have to be deploying wisdom then, wouldn't you? And in what way are you deploying wisdom when you're just doing what somebody else wants you to do, rather than actually thinking through the various different components of what it is you're doing and trying to assess in various different ways the effectiveness of different varieties of approach? Sticking to a tradition, or following a tradition, or people telling you that a tradition is important, it doesn't do you any good. It's not supposed to do you any good. It's supposed to enslave you and turn you into something which then helps to propagate the cult. And the cult itself acts therefore a bit like a parasite living off you and potentially driving you to a state of unreasonableness or lack of clear thought, because the cult itself takes too much power and precedence and it's too much in the foreground. We have to follow the tradition. You have to follow the traditions. You have to follow the traditions. No, you don't. You have to be a person of intelligence and a person of a relatively clear mind, so that you can intellectually and objectively assess what you have experienced and what you have read. If you're someone who wants to just follow a tradition because it's useful to you, obviously I'm not going to turn around to you and say that's a bad thing. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. But I want to encourage you to think about why. Who was it who said to you that tradition was important? What particular traditions were they talking about? Why were they talking about them? How do they, or the cult parasite inside them, profit from you being subservient to somebody else in that way? Tell me. It does profit. It profits them. It profits the ego. It profits the psychosis. It profits the desire to try and change the world. The desire to change the world. Okay. Because we all have some desire to make the world a better place, or to change it somehow, or to deal with some variety of injustice, or some sense of perception about the way in which humans are at the moment, or human society is at the moment, which is somehow fundamentally wrong, and we want to find a way of adjusting it. But for some reason, we develop the attitude that the following of traditions becomes the thing which helps to do that, because eventually you will be encouraging more and more people to think like you. No, you'll be encouraging more and more people to think like what someone else wants them to be like. You need to think through all the various things you do in your traditions and why they would actually be important. In what way do they serve you? In what way do they serve you intellectually, emotionally, spiritually? In what way do they serve you in terms of progressing yourself as someone who will be able to understand these forces and learn how to use them? Okay, all you end up with is an individual giving you their theology, or giving you their doctrine, or giving you their this, that, and the other, which you then have to, find a way of dealing with. But remember, when someone tells you you've got to follow a tradition, it's because they're trying to alpha up over you, they're trying to control you, they're trying to make you less than them, and they're trying to make them seem more powerful than they really are, or more efficient, or more effective, or more knowledgeable than they really are. Within magic, we don't actually have hard and fast knowledge. We have some things which seem to have, or appear under some particular conditions, to have objective reality, and there does seem to be some key things there. But it's still a bit grey. It's still a bit complex. It's still not quite what we need it to be. If we're going to end up in a position of saying, yeah, man, we got a real body of knowledge here, we got a real science. I mean, in my earlier days, I read a lot about different people's traditions, because I thought that would be something that would give me the clues, you know, the clues to how I could experience this, explore it, investigate it, and all that stuff. The only thing that traditions taught me is that there are traditions, and that some people like to follow them. I mean, if you were to pick up a particular traditional grimoire from 400 years ago, it would tell you to do some of the most diabolical things, stupid things, bloodthirsty things, and all of it is completely wrong. Now, one could say hypothetically that there's someone who was already spiritually gifted at some point, who then did those things and something weird happened, because they themselves was already gifted, and they'd created this ritual, this ceremony, this tradition, in order to try and help their themselves existing sense of perception, intention, attention, and all the rest. But they are built differently to you, mentally, physically, spiritually, psychodynamically, every other bloody way in the world. And so therefore they're a different individual to you. So therefore, even if there was someone who followed those traditions and got a apparent result, or even a real result, with however you want to perceive it, right? There's still nothing to suggest that you following that tradition will get the same results at all. And it could just be just a load of very sick, twisted fantasy play in your bedroom. Okay, it could be disgusting. It could be terrible. So when I'm talking about traditions here, I'm not just talking about things from hundreds of years ago. Some new traditions have been developed as recently as 2003. Why? Why not instead of creating lots of little cults, why don't you bring yourself back down to the truth? Okay, the truth of the body, the mind, the energy fields, and working out what combination of spiritual exercises in what ways can actually lead you forward. I mean, like, okay, like with the circle casting, you can do the circle casting. Sometimes you can perceive it, you can feel it sometimes. You can see a circle someone else has cast sometimes. So there is something, like, in inverted commas, real about that, because repeated experiences demonstrate that. But we still can't say 100% what it does. It becomes like a component in what we do. But we still have questions about what it does. Now, you can't turn around to me and say that Wicca has been proven to be the true religion because you can perceive the circle when it is cast. No. Because if a person of a different faith does the same thing, and again they create a circle which can be seen, perceived and felt, then the religion and the cult does not matter. But the things which happen inside the mind, and the visualization, the perception, the attention, the intention and all that stuff, and the shape of the way in which you do your visualizations, that has to be the real thing. And not following a tradition which someone else has said. Alright, it's not that. It's down to the body, the energy field, the mind. The traditions mean nothing and are a distraction away from your development as a good person who can experiment with stuff and do stuff. Okay?